Last year, I attended the March for the Babies, along with possibly many of you. And after the march, I went and grabbed a bite to eat at Macca's and was chatting with a few people. And there was a couple there who had attended the march who I started chatting with. They turned out to be sonographers who work in Melbourne. And they told me a harrowing story, which really moved me. And I asked them to write it down so that I could read it to you in their words. I have worked as a sonographer in Melbourne for over 10 years and can personally attest that non-medically indicated abortions occur at a high frequency and during all trimesters of pregnancy. Primarily, the reason cited is one simply of convenience. Without ever asking why, I've been told it's not the right time, my family is already too big, I don't have the energy, it was a surprise, or I'm not in a relationship. I do not wish to convey judgment at this, as much as simply explain the current state of affairs to those who may have been misinformed. Nonetheless, it is something that weighs heavily on my heart. Mothers undergoing screening for abortion, which involves assessing the location, viability and gestational age of the pregnancy, often request not to view the child's movements on the monitor or hear their heartbeat, both of which are almost always clearly visible and audible at 6 weeks gestation and sometimes earlier. This seems to convey a state of willing and intentional ignorance. It tells me that the parents know that this is not simply a clustered group of cells, but a living being whose termination is unambiguously immoral. People often ask to look at their gallbladders or their kidneys. And why not this? If we don't see or hear the consequences of our choices, then we can pretend they don't exist. I, of course, am sufficiently practiced at expressing no emotion apart from understanding when this request is made, and always immediately comply. But who am I to judge? What right do I have to force them to see? But one particular scan still bears its scars on my soul. The parents had presented for a routine morphology scan at 21 weeks. During the scan, I detected a minor defect known as a cleft palate. This is often an isolated finding, often purely cosmetic, and is readily correctable with minor surgery. I explained and reassured the parents of this, and they left in seemingly good spirits. Not long after, I was informed that they had decided to terminate the pregnancy, against all medical advice. This was accompanied with a pat on the back, so to speak, for a job well done. My wife and I, almost without hesitation, internally requested an offer of adoption be forwarded to the parents, as we felt that this would present an elegant solution, one that would allow the child to survive and the mother not to bear the weight of her decision or suffer the horrible experience of a late-term abortion. This request was denied, and there was no further way to proceed without breaching patient confidentiality, so they never received this offer. The child would have been close to 25 weeks by the time the abortion was performed, a stage of development where he may quite well have survived should the mother have given birth even then. And we still think of this little boy who would have lived if not for an inconvenient blemish that made him less than perfect. You know, aren't we all less than perfect? Why do some imperfections carry a death sentence? I often struggle to reconcile that the better I am at my job, the worse the outcome for the child. Of course, I can never express these sentiments to patients, nor should I, as a health professional. Yet every autonomous individual has the right to decide how their health is managed. Yet in over 10 years, I have not once managed to reconcile this belief with the treatment of society's most vulnerable, who are so easily discarded without ever having their voice heard. Now, last year, concerns like the ones expressed by this sonographer were raised during the abortion debate in New South Wales. And Dr. Deborah Bateson, the Family Planning New South Wales Medical Director, said that she was, and I quote, concerned by some of the reporting during the debate that women might have late-term abortions for reasons such as cleft palates. And when she was asked about this reality, she shrugged it off as a hoax. And she said, and I quote, late-term abortions have been almost trivialized in some of these stories, and we know this never happens. And sadly, in Victoria, it does happen. And Victoria's abortion laws do nothing to stop it and nothing to protect those babies who were born just that little less than perfect.